Good. If you remember, in the last week I spoke about medieval agrarian revolution. Why so important the medieval agrarian revolution? Because recently we are living in modern times. Somebody know recently in the modern country how many percent of population living from agriculture? How many percent? 20? No. A little bit lower.
15?
No. 1 to 5%. 1 to 5%. Even Hungary. Even Hungary. But in the traditional time, I change a little bit the position of video. But historically, 90% of population in the traditional time lived from agriculture. Therefore, in modern time, the importance of agriculture in the general production of economy very small, very important for survival, production of the meals, but the agriculture recently never dominate the production of economy. But in the historical past, 90% of population were each of the countries of traditional world peasant. Therefore, the branch of agriculture, branch of economy which dominated the national or global economy was the agriculture. And when a new European civilization appeared, its a key innovation was introduced a new agriculture, which usable in continental European landscape and continental condition of Europe. And look at the peculiarities of European medieval agrarian revolution. If you remember, the key innovation was a heavy plow, which was able to plow up deeply the brown forest soil. It's very compact, very hard surface. We can understand importance of medieval agrarian revolution if we compare other agrarian innovation, other agrarian paradigm or structure different from the European economy. If we are looking at plants which based the character and the function of economy, there are three civilization maintainer grain, three civilization maintainer cereal. Wheat, a wheat which is the fundamental, the basis of European economy. A rice, which key cereal of Asian agriculture, and a maize or corn. There is a British or American English name, corn or maize, which was a key grain of American civilization. There is a border case, a potato, but potato, it's complementary plants, no fundamental plants of the American civilization. Okay, three criteria we can compare these grains. The first one, labor, which is the quantity of labor necessary for production. The second one, yield, the productivity of grain. And the last one, the effect to the soil, exhaust or not exhaust soil after the production. Okay, look at the first, wheat. Why so important? Because 90% of population living from these cereals, which determine the profile, whole of civilization, and the possibility, possible and impossible, define the boundary between possible or not possible. Okay, look at the labor. In the case of wheat, there is a lot of European fairy tale that the peasant working day by day, very hard. It's not true. It's not true. Why? Because for wheat production, there are only two critical periods. The first, plowing and sowing, generally in October, and a harvest during the late June, July, and August. Any other period, if you have not agrarian experiences, look at, for example, you are traveling, for example, by railway station, looking the landscape, no people on the arable land with sowed by wheat. Nobody between plowing and sowing and harvesting. Therefore, in European agriculture, for peasants had a lot of free time. It's very important, because these free periods usable for industrial activities. Okay, first one. Look at the second one, a productivity. How many yield produce one seed? In European agriculture, the general average, one seed produces 4 seed. It's very low, very moderate. If we try to understand how able survive the European peasants, European households, peasant household, one seed necessary to save for the following years. Why? Because if somebody would like to survive the following years, necessary to save one seed for sowing. The second one had to pay taxes for king, had to pay the taxes for landlords, had to pay the taxes for the church. Unbelievable. How able survive European peasants? The solution for this question, a common used lands. Because two parts of agrarian estate, there is a arable land from which paid the different taxes, and other one, a common used forest, the common used grazing lands, and common used, for example, waters, lakes and rivers and water-covered area. Why so important? Because in European civilization, the richest peasant lived eastern part of Europe. Why? Because density of population much lower. Therefore, the common used land much larger in eastern part of Europe. And the western part of Europe, industrial revolution and the industrial development, industrialization appeared much earlier. But for western peasant had a place for compensation in industrial activities. But generally, the condition of survival for peasant economy was a common used land. How? Look at, for example, in the common used forest had edible fruits, mushrooms, for example, hunting for animals, rabbits and lot of wild animals, and fishing on the common used water, and grazing land for animals. Therefore, a medieval peasant economy survival depend the size of common used land. Okay, which is the other consequences of low rate of yield? No high density of population, never in Europe. If compared in global perspective, Europe, a low density of population. Look at the comparison. There are American students in the audience. No. Probably you know the name of Tenochtitlan, capital of Aztec Empire. It's very recently, this is the place of Mexico City. But Tenochtitlan was the very special capital of Aztec Empire, located inside a huge lake, like a Venice, a little bit similar. And in this area, Tenochtitlan, density of population, on the time of European geographical discoveries, on the time of Cortés, who conquered Aztec Empire, density of population, 200 person per square kilometer, 200. In Nanking, in China, there are Chinese students. In Nanking, the southern capital of Imperial China, 400 in the same period, in the Ming Dynasty period, heyday of Ming Dynasty. 400 person per square kilometer, the deepest, the highest density of population. Look at Europe. In Europe, low country, recently is Belgium and the Netherlands, highest density of population, 50%. 50%. Why? Because a wheat-based culture not able to feed more people. It's disadvantage for first approach. But there are a disadvantage turned to advantage. How? A European civilization turned open for technical innovation. Never enough population, never. Not by chance, in which civilization invented the gunpowder? Chinese. And which civilization made the first gun based on gunpowder? European civilization. Why? Because in Europe, the people open for technical innovation. Never enough people solving the problem. Okay, continue. The first criterion, soil effect. Wheat, it's a quite hostile plant. Why? Because 2 following years not possible to produce on the same place, same estate, a wheat. Why? Because exhaust very heavily. Therefore, if we are looking at arable land in Europe, generally able to use only the half of potential arable land. Why? Because half arable land and half a fallow, a grazing land for recovery of soil. Therefore, it's very hostile, not able to increase after some level the density of population. In Hungary, for example, on the same time in the 15th century, density of population changed between 12 to 15. It's a semi-peripheral area, it's a typical. In Europe, in the traditional time, never had high density of population in global perspective. Look at the rice. In the case of rice, we can divide a dry rice culture and an irrigation system based, how the name is, wet rice culture. It's a typical wet rice culture. Wet rice culture. Productivity of rice is quite high. One seed able to produce 30 to 50. Moreover, there is a special technology of flowing water system, irrigation system, save the productivity year by year. If we are looking, for example, national, how the name is, it's a scientific channel of National Geographic, thanks a lot. It's quite late, I lost the words. National Geography, you can see that working Chinese and Vietnamese and local population in Asia and hoeing on the water-covered area. Somebody know which kind of dung, you know which is the dung? It's a sheet, it's a normal. Which kind of dung using on the rice estate?
Cow.
No? This is the better one.
Goose, duck.
Animals, domesticated animals, generally it's a horse or but very interesting, somebody lived in a mud-covered building. The floor, it's a mud cover. During my childhood, I tell a lot of stories about my childhood for my daughters and for my son. And my son, who was born 2008, told to me, don't like to listen my stories. And there is a communication problem. My oldest daughter was born 1990, and my son, it's 18 years gap between them. And it's very, very, very strange. There are communication problem between them. Because my daughter know a lot of technology which used in the 20th century. For my son, it's far past. Majority of technology, it's disappeared. For example, the disk. My son didn't know which is the disk because in the everyday life never used a disk. And for example, there is a suggestion of the doctors for the children necessary to eat 1 kilogram dust per day for improving, strengthen the immunity. In my case, it's happened because I was born in the traditional community, and somebody know which material used a mud-covered floor for decrease the dust content of the mud-covered floor. Somebody know? Sheet of coal. Very strange, very strange, very strange. It functioned. I survived this physical environment. Okay, but turn back. In the rice arable field, use dung of human. But the dung of human is a toxic. Somebody worked in the rice field? No? It's an irrigation system and quite a bad smell, I suppose. Yeah, I imagine. But in my case, for example, later I will speak about, during my childhood, sorry, it's my children's stories, I slept together with a cat. Recently too, but it was a strange in the peasant family. And during my childhood, every time I had fleas. I had flea. Everybody know which is the flea? It's a small animal. It's very like the human. It's jump. And I supposed that hygienical criteria, it's a good hygiene or bad hygiene, is depend on the number of the fleas. I wasn't able to imagine no fleas. Because I slept together with my cat, it's a free spirit, wandering everywhere in the villages, and therefore there is a special technology for hunting of fleas. If somebody interested after the lecture, I will tell for you which is the hunting. And one of the my grandmother's sister, she was special talent hunting of flea. She was able to hunting down a flea during her sleeping in the alpha, and woke up and counted how many fleas killed during the sleeping. Okay, but it's a special. It's another kind of the discipline. It's cultural anthropology. Cultural anthropology, but it's other one. Okay, turn back. Rice. It's very high the productivity and save a long time the arable land the fertility. It's very dangerous because Asian civilization, mainly in China and the area of Vietnam, increase density of population. You know, around the Nanking, even 400 of person per square kilometer. Why dangerous? because decrease the sensibility for technical innovation. Every problem usable and solvable with organizing huge group of workers. Not by chance invented the gunpowder, invented the printing system. Majority of invention invented in Asia, but not for openness. Not for openness. For example, using the draught animals, domesticated animals. Much easier to use a workers' team. Why? Because if you would like to communicate with animals, speaking to animals, rate of understanding quite moderate. My mother was very nervous because during my childhood I was a strange boy, and my mother told to me she was very surprised because I visited regularly into the stable, and I spoke to the cow 1 or 2 hours. My mother told to me it was great danger that close to me one place it's no handle inside, only outside. But I survived. I have 10 years for the pension and my chance is quite good. Okay, but turn back. Saved a long time fertility, but this is the trend of high level of development. Until the modernization, this was the highest danger for the Asian culture, high levels trend of civilization. Okay, look at the mass or corn. For mass, necessary 50 days per year, mainly sowing and hoeing. Unfortunately, in Europe proliferated the corn and the maize, and in my scientific career played a crucial function, a hoeing of maize. Why? Because during my childhood I hoed a lot of time in the arable land of corn, and I decided I find such places not necessary to hoeing. And when I turned to school, my mother told to me, "You are a strong boy. You are able to survive from hoeing." It's quite efficient form of motivation. Okay, 50 days, it's much or not? It's not so much, because number of year is 365 or 66. Not so much. And there is it's very interesting. Historical anthropologists tell that, for example, one of the key reasons great construction of step pyramids and lot of buildings in Central American culture, lot of free times of peasant, 50 days necessary for hoeing and sowing and harvesting, lot of free times. And very important to understand, if we are looking at traditional people, the importance of rational decision and the religious decision, religious motivation, it's equal. Therefore, construct a pyramid, construct a church, is strengthen religious devices communication with the God and Goddess. Recently, we are living a rational world. Therefore, only one form of accepted form of cognition exists, a rational cognition. First lecture I spoke about yet. Okay, you know. But on the time of traditional time, using a lot of free time of Indian peasant, using for church and pyramid construction, it's not rational but religiously rational decision. Look at the productivity. Productivity almost the same in the case of maize and in the case of rice, but exhaust the soil like corn. Look at the civilization consequences, social consequences. Wheat-based culture, first of all. The first of all, key proportion, social proportion, 80 to 20. 80 to 20 mean because carrying capacity of wheat moderate, whole of Europe, 80, at least, this is the minimal level, at least 8% peasant and 20% independent for primary production. Nobleman, intellectual, priest, and somebody, nobleman, independent somehow from primary production. This is until the Industrial Revolution, it's a closed situation. 80 peasant at least minimum and 20% independent. A low density of population I spoke about yet. High sensibility for technical innovation. Balanced nutrition. Why so important, the balanced nutrition? If you remember, half of the arable land, half grazing land. Therefore, in Europe, never disappear animal husbandry, which necessary for good condition, good feeding, calories, and fine element of food. Therefore, if we try to describe underfeeding, there are a qualitative underfeeding and a quantitative underfeeding. Quantitative underfeeding means not enough calorie. A qualitative underfeeding means not enough fine element of the meals. For example, nutrition, trace elements, vitamins, and so on. And how react the body for malnutrition, underfeeding? The critical situation, some kind of the epidemics, but not a critical situation, decrease the size of body. Increase and decrease, increase and decrease. Sorry for my prejudice, but this is a generally accepted prejudice. The Asian people is short, not for genetic reason. Look at the Guinness yearbook. The tallest man, Chinese. Tallest man, Chinese. Why generalize that the Asian people is shorter? Because the rice is very successful culture, enough produce calorie, no quantitative underfeeding, but the qualitative underfeeding happened early phase of communication and survival. Look at, for example, a Chinese cooking. Which animal there are? A classical, traditional. Duck, chicken, dog, but chicken. And the pig. No large animals. No large animals. Why? Because rice culture so successful, each potential arable land used continuously from the beginning of invention and introduction of agriculture. In Europe, because the wheat, it's a force to following of half of potential arable land, animal husbandry never disappear. Low density of population, this is the positive consequence of low density of population. In Europe, quite balanced the situation. But look at there are Hungarian students, some Hungarian students. Look at, for example, how size the Hungarians. Hungarian history more or less 1,000 years long. Not comparable with the Chinese, but ours. Anyway, on the time of conquering of Carpathian Basin, size of Hungarian warrior, 1 meter, 75 centimeter. From the symmetry, archaeological sites reconstructed the size. Recently, the size of Hungarians, 1 meter, 72 centimeter. This is the modernization's surplus. But if we are looking at size of Hungarian soldier in the 18th century, why it's so interesting, the 18th century? Because it's possible, Turkish student? No Turkish student. Okay, but the Turkish Empire for 1.5 century occupied central and southern part of Hungary. After the Turkish war, repopulated the Carpathian Basin. At the beginning of 18th century, 4 million, at the end of almost 10 million. Therefore, for 1 century, double the population. Double the population. On the time, recruited a new army on the frame of Habsburg Empire, and 2 data wrote into the registration about the recruited soldier. First one, the size of body. It was 1 meter, 61 centimeter. Much shorter. Much. Why? Because increased the population. This was the time of quantitative and qualitative underfeeding, decreased the body. Like, for example, when rising up the price of fuel, price of, how the name is, gasoline and fossil fuels for the car. Decrease the size of car. You remember, for example, 60s in the 20th century, which was the typical American car, large limousine, and increase the price of how the name is, gasoline, decrease the size of body. A little bit same in the case of human, but it's not a decision consequence, but this was the biological reaction. And very interesting, decrease the size of body, and somebody know which was the other information which wrote in the registration by the doctor of army.
The weight probably. Weight maybe.
Weight? No. No, because the weight is the same. Almost.
Size of shoulders.
No? Number of teeth. Why so important?
Age.
For dentists it's very interesting information. Because meals of soldier is dry. It's not enough teeth, lost the physical power. Therefore, through two critical information necessary for efficient participation in the army, size, body size and number of teeth. Okay, but turn back to the story. Balanced nutrition, 5:1 proportion of carrying capacity, arable land able survive and make a carrying capacity 5%. Animal husbandry only 1%. Therefore, on the period of overpopulation, if you in Europe, increase the arable land. But after some level, no possible to overgrow. Why? Because necessary recovery the fertility of the soil. But there is a balancing between animal husbandry and plant farming. Okay, look at the short version, advantage and disadvantage, rice and mass-based culture. High density of population, high capacity of working power, but low sensibility for technical innovation. Not by chance the Industrial Revolution happened in Europe. And the roots of Industrial Revolution go back to the 10th century, to the foundation and formation of wheat culture, which opened the mentality for technical innovation. Okay, qualitative starvation, decrease the size of body, and low importance of animal husbandry. Look at, for example, a Chinese army. Of course, for the Chinese army, necessary form a cavalry. But in the rice culture, no place for grazing land. Therefore, the merchants of Chinese emperor rode to the boundary and bought horses from the nomadic people. Inside of the wall, no places for grazing land. Good. Okay, look at the form of the trade. This is the background of formation of European economy, but Europe, I hope you remember, a European economy to the 12th century was able to produce surplus. Surplus, which is the raw material for the trade. But look at which kind of the form of trade appear in the traditional time. First one, a local trade. A bulky, everyday goods, short distance. Look at, for example, if somebody living in Szeged, there is a market square. It's named Mars Square, Mars tér, and very interesting. You know the Mars. This is a god of war in the Roman mythology. Mars. It's a god of war, god of military activity, so and so. But very interesting, somebody know which was the name of this square during the socialist epoch. Only one character changed. In the socialist epoch, named Marx Square. It's very easy and very talented solution. And recently transferred back to Mars. And if somebody visits in the Mars Square, you can see the people living around the city, around the Szeged, the majority of the producer, short distance and everyday products, some vegetables and meats and sausages from short distance. This is the local trade. This is the peculiarity of local trade. Bulky everyday goods for short distance. Cheapjack, huckstery, and the first basically peasant, the most important sellers, and the first shopkeepers, bakers and butchers. Why? Because for them the products necessary to sell day by day, therefore necessary and usable and rational decision making a shop for that. Okay, the second form of trade are long distance trade, precious commodities for long distance. One, for example, Great Silk Road, you know. The Great Silk Road means it's connected to China, Europe, Africa, and Arabian Peninsula. Therefore, it's a long distance trade. But somebody traveled, for example, from Nanking to Amsterdam, the profit rate might be 400%. 400%. But everybody who started from Nanking to Amsterdam or from Amsterdam to Nanking wrote testimony because very high danger of death. High danger, high profit. Low danger, no high profit. No high profit. This is the rule of economy from the beginning until now. Okay, long distance trade, generally small quantity of products, silk, for example, and frankincense. Somebody know which is the frankincense? This is a burner. In the Roman Catholic Church using a burning frankincense. There is a special sweet melt of sweet smoke of that. And in the early modern, in the Middle Ages, had three great international long distance. The first, Great Silk Road. The second, a frankincense road. Somebody know which is the homeland of frankincense? Nobody? Horn of, yeah?
Yemen.
Yeah, Yemen. Everybody know which is where located Yemen? It's very, very sad because Yemen, like Bangladesh, Bengalia, was the richest part of the world. Recently, not so good the situation. But historically, Yemen, this is the country of Queen Shaba. If somebody read the Bible, Shaba, one of the richest queen whole of the antiquity. Why? Because if we are looking at Arabian Peninsula had three historical geographical regions. It's a desert, a semi-desert area. This is the area of historical Yemen. Why so important? Because this area receives a monsoon rain. Therefore, in this desert area, in the region of Yemen, irrigation-based agriculture. And this is the chain of oasis cities, which connected the outer Arabian Peninsula. And this is the frankincense area, and this is the Horn of Africa, Somalia recently. And it's a tragical. In antiquity, this was second and third richest region of the world. And this recently the poorest and most dangerous place of the world. Okay, frankincense was the second, and the third one, a spice trade. The spice trade came from Indian Ocean. Cinnamon, nutmeg, pepper, and very interesting, I have to mention, value of pepper was the same value of gold on that time. 1 kilogram pepper, 1 kilogram gold. Why? Why so high price? A pepper. Cheers. If somebody would like to eat and drink, no obstacle. Yeah, because it's a tragical in the modern time, divided the physical and the intellectual joy. If somebody would like to eat, don't disturb me. Okay, and drink. Why, the question was, why the same price gold and the pepper?
Was it?
Yeah, go on. No.
You was the first.
Okay. Maybe because pepper was rare and it was still hard to get it from where it was to.
Yeah, but cinnamon came from same area,
Yeah.
same work expenses, same transport cost, but
Maybe pepper was more rare species of plant than the cinnamon back at that time. What would you say?
I think because for the Europeans it was more in demand for the Europeans, so they didn't buy.
Is it possible that it's harder to grow?
for psychological reason. If somebody knows the function of economy, stock exchange, for example, majority is a psychology. Why? Look at, for example, recently, after the drug production, cocaine and others, which is the second highest rate of profit, perfume industry. Which selling the perfume industry? Illusion. I take a bottle, I read, for example, Brad Pitt, I push him and imagine I am Brad Pitt. Illusion, psychology. There is in my faculty education one course of stylist, a stylist education. And one perfumer, in Hungary there are 5 persons who graduated in Versailles in Paris and received a diploma about maker of highest level maker of perfume. One of this person took a lecture, and the introductory question of him was, look at, for example, one typical bottle of perfume. You are going to the shop of perfume, the price 100 euro, which is the cost of making. Any other illusion. You're pushing, and I am the Brad Pitt. Nobody believe, but a lot of times I try to introduce myself. I'm Brad Pitt. Very surprised. Why? Because I am a bottle. Okay, a little bit same situation. Because the pepper became very, very popular even in the Western Roman Empire. In the first century before Christ, and a high prestige saved in the Middle Ages. Not by chance, if you know, for example, a European history, which was the greatest political integration until the 19th century, Holy Roman Empire. Everybody thought that this is the best one, Roman Empire. Not by chance. Look at, for example, population of Rome. 1.5 million. The same level European civilization was able to produce only in the 19th century London. Therefore, if we are looking at the history, very important call your attention, it's not a history of continuous development. There is an illusion because we are modern. I'm not, because I'm partly traditional, but majority of audience are modern people. And inside our modern brain, there are principles. Everybody improve. This year produced better iPhone than former. It's not true. The history is up and down, up and down. And we are not able, fortunately, the future. But turn back to the story. This is a psychology. And the price and the prestige of pepper, it's very high. Very, very high. Until the 17th century. When, in consequence of great geographical discoveries, appeared a new colonial products. Chocolate, coffee, tea, tobacco. And pushed out from the high prestige position and down. And recently, if you go to the shop, the price of pepper is quite moderate. Therefore, it's very important to memorize, for economists, it's not a surprise, I suppose, that majority of reason of economical offers psychology. Not a real content of cost and the profit and so on. No. Okay, long distance trade, able to produce a high profit, but very dangerous, right in the testimony. Okay, and finally, this is the second and third one, inter-regional trade. Inter-regional trade. The first inter-regional trade, which appeared in Europe, appeared between Baltic area and low countries, recently Belgium and the Netherlands. Why so interesting? Somebody visited in Netherlands? Netherlands, 1/3 of the country under the water level of sea. No chance for produce any plant and any form of agriculture. Therefore, the local people specialized industrial activity, textile industry mainly, and imported staple foods from Baltic area. Therefore, organized inter-regional trade. Imported wheat, imported timber, wooden material. Why so important? Because each period had a key production. Recently, fossil fuels. For example, Emirates and the countries who able to produce fossil fuels, rich countries. Why? Because the most important raw material for chemical industry, for mobile industry, the gasoline, the fossil fuels, and so on and so on. In the traditional time, the same position was the timber. Why? From wooden material, constructed the ships, constructed the buildings, constructed the pond, how the name, ports, not ports, which is the construction is covering river. Bridge. Thanks a lot. Yeah, but well, it's possible I told to you that 10 years ago I participated a book presentation. I told you, not? In Budapest. It was my nightmare. I was one of the translator of American book. It's about the 20th environmental history of 20th century, and I spoke with the author, with my environmental history colleagues, and somebody take the hand on my shoulder, that some words Hungarian necessary for introduction. And I spoke with the author, with John McNair, in English of course, and I turned back, and the dictionary of English down, and no dictionary up. I jumped back before appearance of language. The monks in Himalaya meditate for years, and I jumped. It was unbelievable. I lost the words. No English, no Hungarian, and only I saw the audience. To my friends, this is the first symptom of panic. How the name? It's a panic sickness. But it's very interesting. Never, nor before, neither after happened the same. But it was very strange. No words. I felt the phase of function of the brain after, or not after, before the appearance of language. Okay, but I hope that never happened again. But sometimes when I lost the words, I remember to the situation. But fortunately, recently, I am losing only 1 or 2 words and help our audience, of course, fortunately. Okay, everything construct for wooden material. Bridges, more bridges, of course, buildings, ships, and everything. If somebody had timber material, had everything, sorry. Interregional trade between Baltic area and industrial products, transport to Baltic area and the back raw material. Why interesting? Because this was the playground of global economy. A European trader tested the technology of global trade in between the Low Country and the Baltic Sea. Bulky everyday goods, long distance. Good. How we can allocate and distribute the commodities? Market, you know which is the market. This is the form of the trade. After appearance of money, it's simplified the form and the technology of the change. Redistribution. Probably you know which is the redistribution. This is the technology of modern state. Each state collecting, gathering taxes and fees, and redistribute according to interest of state. Very important, the motivation of state, because each economy were able to produce profit. But very important, which is the motivation of state and the leader of state. The pyramids in Egypt constructed from profit. But the motivation of leader of the state, the pharaohs, communication with the gods. And device of pyramid help this communication. Look at, for example, if somebody visited in Madrid or Rome, it's profit of colonization used for luxury consummation. If you are walking in Barcelona or Madrid, the majority of buildings constructed from profit of colonization. Therefore, very important direction of redistribution of profit. But the greatest innovation of European economic history, introduced by Dutch trader, reinvested. It was a revolutionary idea. Reinvent the profit to economy and reinforce the efficiency of the function. Before the Dutch trader, nobody reinvented. For example, the French trader bought the title of nobleman. This named the betrayal of citizens. Named. Each French merchant would like to be nobleman. Okay, redistribution and reciprocal forms. Everybody know which is the reciprocal forms? Nobody. Okay. Reciprocal form, this is the market, this is the redistribution system. Reciprocal forms, it's quite a traditional forms of reallocation of the goods. For example, there is a young couple, after the marriage, not enough money for financing construction whole of the building. Therefore, enough money had for buying bricks and the raw material, timber and so on. And the brothers and the relatives and the friends help to him or her for construct the building. This is the bank of service. But very important differences from the market. If somebody never asks back the help, it's not a fault. Not a fault. Therefore, the guiding force of reciprocal system is the need of the community or need of the persons. Generally, it was a low-rank technology of organizing economic activity. Only once became a frame of imperial economic organization. It happened in the Inca Empire. Inca Empire organized between the Andes mountain and the Pacific Ocean. Between the mountain area and the tropical Pacific Ocean had three geographical regions. Mountain area with animal husbandry, vicuña, alpaca, llamas. Temperate climate area with quinoa, it's a cereal, or maize or potato, and the tropical coastal area. And the Inca Empire organized each county contained one slice from each region. And if necessary, for example, salted fish in mountain area, transported. And for example, llama meat on the coastal area, transported back. And which is the reciprocal form? Never compare the value. The needs was the key factor, the leading force of this kind of reciprocal technology. Okay, over. Each basic concept we define. Look at the story, look at the history. I hope you remember when I spoke about the space, I showed to you one night satellite picture about Earth. And very interesting, and I call your attention, in Europe had two economic and lighting poles in Europe. 11th century, northern part of Italy and area of Low Country. And I told to you, this is the meaning of history. In the history, time and space had structures which survived the falling of empire, falling of state, falling of civilization. It's very interesting. In Europe, since the beginning of Middle Ages, had two civilization poles, south and north, even now. Okay, if we are looking at Mediterranean area, I hope you remember, if we are looking the history of Europe, I spoke about the Europe, in Phoenician Empire, Greek Empire, Roman Empire, the Mediterranean Sea was a cradle of civilization. But in consequence of appearance of Muslim civilization, Mediterranean Sea became a boundary between Christendom and the Muslim civilization. But economic importance of Mediterranean Sea, of course, had very high. This was the most important economic surface. And the key problem was, in High Middle Ages, which civilization will dominate the most important economic region of this European, African, Asian area. Had three candidates for that. Byzantine Empire, Muslim civilization, and Italian cities. Venice, Genoa, Padua, a smaller one. Very interesting, if you are looking the rank list, the strongest one on that time in the Mediterranean area, a Byzantine Empire. The capital, it's a Constantinople, located on the eastern basin of Mediterranean Sea and connected the Black Sea, which was a history. Somebody visited in the Black Sea area? Black Sea area, no? During my university studies, I studied history and geography. And we had a geographical field trip to the Crimean Peninsula. Unbelievable place. Unbelievable place. Because the Black Sea coastal area was a part of Greek civilization. A ruins of a lot of Greek ports and cities. And later, it was a part of Italian colonies. Genoa, Venice, an unbelievable place. If somebody walking on the coastal area, but recently not a good condition for visiting in the Crimean Peninsula, but it's possible. I visited Odessa similarly. Odessa stories I told to you. Cockroaches and that. But the surface of harbor, I spoke about surface of harbor. Somebody visited in Odessa? Nobody. I suggest to you after the war, I hope we'll close quite a short time, the harbor of Odessa covering with the rocks of Vesuv, volcano of central Italy. I spoke about. Okay, you know everything which I know. Good. I'm passing my most important information. Good. Byzantine Empire, the strongest one. The second one, a Muslim civilization. But very surprising, the winner is Italian cities. Why? Why the weakest one won the position of dominate the trade of Mediterranean seas, trade and economy? Because for them the most important. Why? Because other civilizations are continental civilizations. Continental-oriented civilization. What means the continental-oriented civilization? In the case of Byzantine Empire, Muslim Empire, the same. Income of empire, 98% taxes and fees. For them, the profit of maritime trade, marginal. Never activated strong effort for dominate for 2% of income. But in the case of Italian cities, each of income came from the maritime trade. Therefore, the Venetians, Amalfi, it's another one city, Genoa, trader of Genoa, very highly motivated trader had and tried to monopolize the maritime trade for them. Therefore, very important the motivation in this case. The weakest candidates, but the most motivated. Okay, which was the peculiarity of trade of Mediterranean Sea? Basically, trade of Mediterranean Sea, a distributor trade. No producer trade, distributor trade. The spice, this was the northern pole of spice trade. You remember the spice trade? On that time had three long distance trade, and one of them a spice trade which monopolized Italian cities. You remember the pepper, which was the gold price, nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon, and cloves, came from Indian Ocean, island of the Indian Ocean. But the spices which arrived and traveled to Europe arrive in the chain of traders. Indonesia, Indonesian student? No, Indonesia. Indonesian student. Indonesia, if I speak something is not correct, correct me please. It's helped a lot, for example, it's possible I taught at the Central European University, and the student came from United States, China, a lot of times, and time by time, raise the hand, it's not true, it's not true. Yeah, but because majority of my information came from the internet and came from the different books, therefore it's possible, it's not true. But Indonesia, excellent place for trade. Why? You will correct me. Because a population of Indonesia, it's surface of immigration. Immigration from China, immigration from India, and immigration on the time of birth of Muslim civilization. Therefore, the people and the trader overlap each other. From Indonesia, there are a gate to China, a trading gate to China, to India, and to Muslim civilization. Therefore, the starting place of spice trade, Indonesia. And in the direction of Europe, the Muslim trader transported via Red Sea to Alexandria, famous port of Nile River, transported the spice, this kind of the spice, pepper, nutmeg, and others. And Italian trader bought the spices from Alexandria and distribute in Europe. And very interesting, because Italian trader only transported to Italian cities these kind of spices, and later the subtenants and sub-trader of Italian cities distributed in Europe in small bags the spices. My question, which continental nation, European continental folks distributed the spices in Europe? My guess. Italian trader only transported to Genoa, to Venice, to Amalfi, to Florence, but in continental Europe, which nations trader distributed?
Dutch.
Dutch? No, no Dutch. Because Dutch is Netherlands. No Dutch. German?
Portuguese.
Not German. It's one. German? No? Jewish. And unbelievable, in the 12th century started the rivalry. Why so important to learn history? The rivalry between Jewish and the German traders started in the 12th century. And which is the consequence of rivalry? Bad prejudice, one to other. Okay.
Where would we say like the geography of the Jewish beat?
Yeah, but Jewish people, after the war between Judah and Roman war, happened in 72 and not only 78, lost. After the losing of war, it's had to left the Holy Land and distributed and proliferated everywhere. And until the formation of Israel state, the Jewish people lived in proliferation. And two community of Jewish formed. The first one living in Christian environment is named Ashkenazi, and the other one living in Muslim environment named Safad or Sephard. To my spelling, anyway, I read in books. And in Ashkenazi community had a lot of small community everywhere in Europe. Therefore, this network help a lot for making and organizing a distribution. Moreover, historically, the most popular translator in the Middle Ages and early modern time were Jews. Because one part of family lived in Lisbon, other part in Tunis, and the last Istanbul later. Therefore, if somebody only spent 1 year, one part of the family, rather learn 6 or 7 or 8 different languages. Not by chance, official translator of Sultan of Ottoman Empire was a Jew, translator of Pope in the Vatican, Jews, and the translator of King of Spain, Jews. Very popular, or a trader, for example. Okay, but it's other story. Okay, the southern pole of European civilization, not producer, distributor trade. But the profit rate, unbelievable high. Unbelievable high. Look at the pepper, it's same value like gold. Very important peculiarity of development of cities that if we are looking at continental Europe, we can imagine ocean of feudal system, ocean of feudalism, and some city island. If somebody living inside of the city, direct the life, basically different rules, like in the feudal world. In the feudal world, landlords, it's killing each other, peasant plowing and hoeing and working. Inside of the city, had a citizen profession, intellectual work, trading, and artisan making some products. This is the continental situation. But in Italy, basically different. Why? Because in Italy survived heritage of Roman Empire, a paved street, a channelized city. Therefore, even the nobleman living inside the city invest the capital to the life of city, economy of city, construct the building inside the city. Look at, for example, somebody notice city, it's named San Gimignano. San Gimignano. The nobleman living inside the city. This is the city wall against the enemies of city, and this is the family tower against each other. Look at the story of Romeo and Juliet, the play of Romeo and Juliet. Montagu and Capulet living inside the Verona and kill each other on the street of the city. Look at Europe, a continental Europe, on the battlefields. And the nobleman living in the forts. In Italy, the nobleman living inside the city and participate in the trade, and huge capital of family invest to trade. This is very important advantage of Italy in this regional comparison. Good. This is the network of the Levant trade. This is the distribution network of German and the Jews trader. Okay, this is the contemporary trade. It's a red one, the Great Silk Road, and the blue one are spice roads. Spice roads from Indian Ocean to Europe. You can see via Red Sea and distribute to Italy, and from Italy, Jews and the German trader distribute everywhere in Europe. Okay, this is the southern pole. Distributor trade based to spice. Look at the Low Country. Low Country is a historical geographical region from Denmark to basin of Paris. Historically larger than the Netherlands and Belgium. Why interesting? Because this is a part of Habsburg Empire and contain 17 provinces. 20% of area under sea level. It's water covered and partly water covered area. Nobody visited in the Netherlands? Nobody. I lived half a year in unbelievable place. For example, walking on the street and level of water 2 meters higher than the pavement level. Why? Because, if, for example, this is the low country and this is the sea level. And in this area, under the water level of sea, somehow necessary to push up to the sea. Therefore, constructed windmills, you know, windmills, not for grinding wheat and cereals. No, this is a water pump. It's pumping up. Each stairs has a water windmills pumping up and flow back to the sea. This is artificial environment. Generally artificial environment, and I participate. You know the name of Gouda. This is a name of cheese, Gouda. I visited in Gouda. It's a real city, and it was a conference for water engineers, and discussed about the problem of global warming. And according to forecast of global warming, one of the most important danger rising up of global sea level with 1 meter. But Dutch engineer started the water regulation in the 10th century. Therefore, nobody panicked. We were rising level of dam with 2 meters. No problem, no problem. Because it's unbelievable artificial environment. Organized the water regulations since the 10th century, and very important, highly urbanized area. Population of urban people, urban inhabitants, reached even the late Middle Ages 30 to 40%. How possible? Probably you remember proportion 80 to 20. 80 to 20. Able step up higher urbanization level because import grain from Baltic area, from the Baltic, southern Baltic area. And very important, low country agriculture, industrialized agriculture. Industrialized agriculture means make raw material for industrial production. Like, for example, hemp, not this kind of hemp, for industrial hemp. And for example, dairy economy, making a cheese. Cheese, this is the tin of Middle Ages, because very limited forms of conservation had in traditional time. And if somebody watched in the TV or personally cheese presentation, which is the size of cheese? 1.5 meters. Why? Because the surface of the cheese is drying. Therefore, if we increase the size of the cheese, the proportion of the lost part of the cheese minimized. This was a theme, a conserve of contemporaries. And very interesting, tulip bulb trade. In the natural form, only one region there are a tulip. Somebody know? Which area? Part of natural vegetation, the tulip, it's a flower. Tian Shan, Central Asian mountain area. In natural condition, has only one color, red one. Any other, it's a breeding. But the value, for example, a dark tulip, this is the price of one village or 2. Therefore, this is the added value. This is early example, added value. Other people is hoeing and harvesting year by year, and one people, a talented people, able to produce much higher value, not in modern time, in the Middle Ages, than more 100 people with dark tulip. Dark tulip. Okay, thanks a lot for your attention, and we will continue in the next week.